How are you doing today, my lazies? Continuing this segment, we're looking into an interesting one. How would everyone in the preliminaries fare against each other? As for the matches that already occurred, those will be much more brief. I'll go in order of the contestants that appeared and discuss how they fare against the other genin. I will be excluding Kabuto since he didn't participate and would be an unfair match for every genin. And with that being said, starting off the list, we'll be analyzing Yoroi and Sasuke. Now, this will be the same conditions as they were when they arrived, so no comparisons of fresh shinobi and curse mark power, but purely how everyone arrived at the preliminary. Starting with Yoroi, I believe he beats Sakura, Ino, Choji, Misumi, Zaku, Kin, Dosu, and Kiba, but loses against Sasuke, Naruto, Shino, Kankuro, Temari, Tenten, Shikamaru, Hinata, Neji, Gaara, and Lee. Now, it's gonna be an ongoing pattern that everyone beats Sakura and Ino since they are the obvious weakest people in attendance. Ino only being a bit above Sakura when not holding back or nerfed by Naruto's yelling. The way everyone reacted to their fight, saying they were absolutely pathetic, and Yoroi being a Sound Village elite spy should be more than enough to explain why he absolutely destroys these two without question. Adding on to his wins, he definitely beats the rookie Sound Squad of Zaku, Dosu, and Kin together, let alone separate. He was in Kabuto's team, which means he was part of the elite spy squad, unlike the other three who were trying to impress Orochimaru only to fail miserably. Comparing him to his partner, I believe he lost to a weaker opponent, but due to his skill compared to his partner Misumi, if they were to fight, I highly believe Yoroi's chakra absorption edges him above Misumi, who can only make his body flexible. Looking into the more slightly challenged wins, Choji's only move at the time was his human boulder. So one touch and he's done, just like with Dosu. The other win I see him pulling off is against Kiba, considering Yoroi, at least in the filler arc, was able to keep up with Shino a bit as far as absorption, and he's actually an elite spy with decent skills. Kiba losing to a tired Naruto shows just how pathetically unimpressive he truly was. Yes, Yoroi lost to a weaker opponent, but I have full confidence that him going against Kiba would have been the end of Kiba. Keep in mind, Kiba's team had 2 days of rest. Kiba used performance enhancers, and Naruto was exhausted and sealed by Orochimaru. Yet he still beat Kiba with an enhanced Akamaru. Yoroi's only goal was to force Sasuke into using his curse mark, but to beat him, and he still had a better performance. The fact a weakened Naruto could still react to Kiba's high speed means Yoroi would easily be able to react to him and steal his chakra due to the close combat fighting style of Kiba and Akamaru. Now, as far as losses for Yoroi, we dive into his actual loss against Sasuke. Was it plot induced? Obviously, but a win is still a win. His next loss would be against Naruto for several reasons. For one, even being suppressed, Naruto performed better than Sasuke in the preliminary, hands down, and he exhausted the absolute most of his chakra fighting for a full night, juggling multi-shadow clones and transformations without using Kyuubi chakra before battling Kiba and Akamaru. If Yoroi were to absorb Naruto's chakra, several things would happen, aside from a plot-induced win. For one, he would have absorbed the seal Orochimaru set, which would release the Kyuubi chakra, making Naruto stronger against him. And or he would have absorbed Kyuubi chakra and been poisoned. Kyuubi is the hard counter for Yoroi against Naruto, let alone the sheer reserves of energy this kid still had during his fight after being so massively exhausted. Moving on to an even harsher loss, Shino would, and has at least in filler, completely annihilated Yoroi. Shino, other than Gaara, was actually the strongest in the exams, but we only get minor mega feats from him, so it's not as clear cut to see for everyone. Moving on to a slightly less obvious win that I can see playing out the exact same way it did against Misumi, Kankuro would annihilate Yoroi. The switch he did against Misumi should be easily replicated against Yoroi, considering he's a close combat fighter and Kankuro is a trap artist. The next one, due to power and sheer range, Temari would easily clap Yoroi, as her long range is just his perfect counter. I know her feats were shafted by other factors, but another fighter that would win for the same reason is Tenten. A slightly less obvious loss for Yoroi would be against Shikamaru. Now, this one is interesting because Shikamaru has low chakra reserves, and it's safe to say that Yoroi can touch the shadow possession with his hand, he'd absorb it, but with little to no chakra, Shikamaru was still able to outplay and outsmart his opponent, so it's very safe to say he has a high chance of outsmarting one-trick ponies like Yoroi. Neji and Hinata both win for the same reason, the Gentle Fist. They're the most dangerous close combat fighters and manipulate the chakra network, so they are harsh counters for Yoroi no matter how much chakra he absorbs. Lee absolutely annihilates Yoroi just by dropping his weights. Lee with them was bullying the rookie Sound Squad, and when he dropped the weights, he was blitzing Gaara's sand faster than Curse Mark Sasuke did against the Sound Trio. And Gaara, do I even need to explain why he loses there? Moving on, we have Sasuke winning against Sakura, Ino, Zaku, Misumi, Tenten, Kin, Kiba, Dosu, and Choji, but losing against Shino, Kankuro, Temari, Shikamaru, Naruto, Hinata, Neji, Gaara, and Lee. If you truly need an explanation of how Sasuke beats Ino and Sakura, please go rewatch the series. Same goes for Zaku with his broken arms, and Kin, who uses Genjutsu on someone that is highly resistant to it. Yes, this Sasuke at this time couldn't use his Sharingan, but a brief use of it would turn the Genjutsu into Kin and clap her or snap him out of it immediately. Now, while Sasuke only saw Dosu's jutsu once, if base Lee was bullying Dosu and Sasuke could mimic base Lee at that time, he would absolutely clap Dosu with Lion's Barrage after being pressured by the sound wave amplification. If Sasuke could beat Yoroi with Taijutsu, it's safe to say that he'd annihilate Misumi as well, albeit with more difficulty considering his skill set. Choji would KO himself against Sasuke, similar to what he did against Dosu, if not worse. Tenten would actually be a difficult battle here for a while for this Sasuke, but with him mimicking Lee and the Uchiha weapon specialty, he'd still be able to beat Tenten here with high difficulty due to him being nerfed and exhausted. Last on the list is Kiba. Unlike Naruto, Sasuke isn't dumb enough to allow Kiba to use his food pills, but even if he is, he still has Lee's copied Taijutsu, so he'd be able to perform about the same as Naruto, but with his long-range jutsu arsenal and trap artistry at the time. Now, I do believe that Sasuke was weaker than Naruto at this time, so I can actually see Naruto pulling a win if they were to fight here. Naruto impressed Orochimaru and Kabuto in the forest along with Sasuke and Sakura, so I don't doubt that he wouldn't beat this weakened Sasuke and even force him to use the curse mark, which would disqualify him and Naruto depending on how the ref calls Kakashi's interference. The 4 people Sasuke can't beat even at full power and using the curse mark are Shino, Gaara, Neji, and Lee. Lee already proved he's superior to Sasuke while weighted, so even copying Lee, if he takes off the weights, that's the end of Sasuke at that time. Gaara and Shino are actually the strongest in this arc and have arsenals that Sasuke can't combat even with the curse mark active. Kakashi himself already said it, and Neji even proved it with his reaction in the forest, or lack thereof, when Sasuke used the curse mark. Neji was the only one that didn't react to Sasuke's awakening, and he could actually see his chakra. So even with it, Sasuke would lose at this time to Neji. Kakashi himself even claims Neji is stronger than Sasuke, and he knows about the curse mark. Now, for the lesser losses Sasuke would take, Kankuro already had beef with him, and his arsenal would be something Sasuke can't combat at this time of the series. It is well known that a full power Sasuke could beat one puppet Kankuro, as he was able to bully Temari, who is stronger, or if you want to underscale her, the same strength as him. Yes, she was weakened, and yes, Sasuke was stronger than he is at this point, but even when they first met, he already intimidated them. That being said, this weakened Sasuke would actually get humbled by both Temari and Kankuro at this time, as they were at full power. The least noticeable loss for Sasuke would actually be against Shikamaru. While they were in the same class, Sasuke doesn't actually know what his abilities are. The only way Sasuke wins is if Shikamaru quits, which is highly likely. But if they do fight, Shikamaru can actually win the same way he did against Keen, since Sasuke will be nerfed and Shikamaru can outsmart him. The next set of characters will be pretty short analysis. Next is Zaku, Abumi, and Shino, Aburame. These two are like yin and yang, as the only people Zaku can beat are Sakura, Ino, Keen, while the only people capable of pulling a win against Shino are Gaara and Lee. Zaku was the second weakest of his squad, and his arms were broken. He could still use them though, so a splicing sound wave even under Genjutsu would be enough to beat his partner Keen, even in his state. Zaku is amongst one of the weakest characters in the preliminaries, so I don't want to go too much in depth on why he loses to everyone else. The only one I can see anyone arguing for is Choji, but remember in the forest that Choji actually overpowered him and was only caught off guard when he tried to use Ino as collateral. Without that, and with how weakened he was now, Choji would actually win here. On the opposite end, I guess I would explain a few of the controversial wins for Shino. Now, in actuality, Shino can beat everyone in attendance, including Gaara, but there are win cons for Lee and Gaara that force me to give them an edge. Now, explaining Lee, depending on how powerful you believe Gate of Pain and Closing Lee is compared to the massive Shinra Tensei of Pain, will determine what you think of his battle with Shino. I feel like this battle could go either way. The Aburame clan can withstand Pain's strongest almighty push, but if you want to nerf defeat, you could say it's just impressive that Shino's Beetles could even be compared. Again, yes, Shino was stronger in Shippuden, but the power of his Beetles are fairly consistent. Even trying to downplay them by saying they were never compared to Gaara's shield or Neji's rotation, then they're not as durable, isn't even a good enough argument to say they can't withstand Lee's assault. They also absorb chakra, and the gates use a massive amount of it, so Lee would be significantly weaker with each attack to the Beetles, and their absorption is higher than Yoroi's, who barely tapped Sasuke's hair and made him lose motor functionality briefly. Now the real question isn't whether Shino can withstand Lee's physical power, it's more of how he combats his speed. Even with the high absorption of Shino, there's still a chance that Lee's speed gives him the win with one strong blow, as taijutsu was Shino's weakness at this time. Now narratively, Gaara is stronger than Shino, but their actual arsenal says it's actually an even 50-50. While Gaara has Shukaku and a high speed shield, Shino's bugs absorb chakra, so they can actually consume the shield along with the sand armor, forcing Gaara to unleash Shukaku, which still won't be that much of a threat, as Shino's bugs can absorb Biju chakra and Senjutsu. This is the real fight that would have had people on their toes watching if it actually happened. And on to his undisputed wins. The most controversial are Neji and Hinata. Now, Shino is actually the strongest person on his squad, including Kurenai. Shino in the retrieval arc was an A to S rank threat, considering he went on a mission with his clan leader during high priority alone. We don't know how significant a difference that Shino was from the preliminary, but we do know he claimed he would have rescued Sasuke if he were there, and judging by the Aburame lore, it's very plausible. When Neji looked inside of Shino, all he saw were the beetles, yet he was talented enough to see chakra points at this time. Even he was shook at the mere notion of Shino's power, and he misjudged how it worked. Imagine him going into battle against him with this same mindset, while Shino has been training with Hinata, which means he's used to the Hyuga style, and his intelligence is comparable to Shikamaru, at least in the data books at the time. There's really no question that he could beat Neji unless you just really love Neji more than Shino. Shino is an all-range specialist, so long, short, mid, and awkward range, he'd dominate everyone else in the exams 1v1. Even the wind blast from Temari wouldn't be enough, as we've already compared the Shinra Tensei downscaling and how his bugs would hold up against Lee, let alone Temari. We've already seen him beat a stronger Kankuro and Zaku, and I've already explained the Biju chakra absorption for any Naruto fights, so tell me how you think he fares against everyone. Next up is Misumi, Tsurugi, and Kankuro. The only people I can see Misumi confidently beating are Sakura, Ino, Dosu, Kin, Zaku, and Choji. The sound rookies would get beaten due to their rank difference as spies, meaning Kabuto and Orochimaru both believed they were stronger than Dosu's entire team. Misumi is one of the weakest in this arc, but definitely above Sakura, Ino, and Choji as well. He lost to Kankuro embarrassingly, and would lose to any close range and long range specialist given his ability, hence why he loses to everyone else in the exams. Now, Kankuro is actually an interesting story. He beats all the same people Misumi does, along with him and his partner Yoroi, Tenten, Naruto, and Sasuke. Due to how weak Naruto and Sasuke were at the time, Kankuro had a high chance of winning against them, with Naruto's only win con being the sheer amount of clones he could make and somehow outsmarting Kankuro like he did against Kiba. Don't believe I need to explain why everyone else beats him, but here's a brief synopsis. Long range would be his weakness. The Hyuga clan can see chakra and sever his lines. Shino already beat him, and Lee is physically too strong for him. Now, these next two I've already established they're the absolute weakest in the Chuunin exams as a whole, so it's no surprise that Sakura and Ino can only beat each other, and maybe Choji, depending on the situation. If they offer Choji food, he'd fold without a fight. Plus, he doesn't attack his friends, and he considers both of them as friends. Tenten is a weird character because she's amongst the weakest, but has interesting win cons. Obviously, she beats the two weakest and Choji due to her long range. She beats the sound duo from Kabuto's team along with Zaku specifically. Her twin dragons would actually be too much for Zaku, considering Sakura's traps almost fully clapped him, and Tenten is an actual weapons expert. Now, on a similar note, but in a much better way, Temari's long range gives her a dangerous advantage against Tenten, who operates from the same range. The only people that confidently beat her are Gaara, Lee, Neji, Hinata, Naruto, Shino, and Shikamaru. Everyone else gets beaten. Now, I know you might be looking at this like, how does she beat Sasuke but not Naruto? Now to that I say that Sasuke was significantly weaker than Naruto at this point. Full power Sasuke bullies her, but weakened, he's getting demolished. Naruto, on the other hand, has a perseverance that would actually get him the win against Temari. Now, the next person we're looking at is a complete wild card because he has ways to beat everyone on the list, even weakened, but he has a high chance of giving up against a strong enough opponent. To get it out of the way, he just demolishes Sakura, Ino, Zaku, and Kin. Looking into his more difficult wins, I can see him beating Yoroi, Misumi, and Dosu with slight difficulty. Yoroi and Misumi would be easier for him to beat since the range of his attack is a hard counter for their close combat, and his creative strategies would actually get him the win against them. But this is also where I can see a small chance of him giving up against these three, depending on how determined he is to leave. These next few, Choji, Tenten, Sasuke, Kiba, and Temari, are where he has more of a 50-50 chance of quitting. At this point, he could beat the weakened Sasuke, outsmart Choji, trap Kiba and Akamaru, and outsmart Temari. But due to him seeing Sasuke in the forest with the curse mark, Choji either making him lose on purpose to boost his confidence for fighting his friend, or both of them refusing to fight each other, getting them disqualified. How fast and annoying Kiba is to fight, no cover for him to recreate a strategy against Temari in the finals, and the range of Tenten's attacks, I can see these battles with him winning and them quitting. Yet, if he's actually determined to fight them, he can beat all of them at this time. As for the people he would either lose to or immediately quit, we have him fighting and losing to Naruto, Shino, and Hinata, but quitting against Gaara, Neji, and Kankuro. He'd think, like everyone else in this class, that Naruto is easy pickings, and that he has a chance against Hinata and Shino since they're in his class, but end up getting beaten. As for the next contestant, she's easily one of the weakest and only has a chance against Sakura, Ino, Zaku, and Choji. Kin Suchi has no way to beat everyone else. She only really has a chance against Zaku because of his arms being broken by Sasuke. While Sakura would immediately dispel her genjutsu, that's pretty much where her abilities end, and since Sakura can't actually fight, Choji would immediately get clapped by the genjutsu with no way to dispel it and clap himself. I don't really think there's any debating the others beating her, but I guess I'll mention some of the ones people might potentially mention. I can see someone saying she has a chance against Tenten, Naruto, and maybe if you stretch it, the weakened Sasuke, but really think about how outmatched she is here. One glimmer of Sharingan from Sasuke and her genjutsu subsides. Tenten is a dangerous person to have under genjutsu because she would quite literally just throw a myriad of weapons everywhere and clap her while injuring someone in the stands. And Naruto, while his Kyuubi chakra can't help him at this point due to Orochimaru, would clap her with sheer determination. The fact this kid would not go down against someone like Kiba doesn't bode well for someone as weak as Kin. I can actually see Naruto plugging his ears to dispel her genjutsu, then clapping her, since that's actually within his character. I can see so many win cons for Naruto that it's not even funny. Everyone else is just too skilled for her to fight, as all of them have counters for her jutsu. Next on the list is the main character. No, not the real main character of the arc, Sasuke, but the side main character, Naruto. Now, to make this list short, the only people Naruto can't beat at this time are Gaara, Shino, Neji, and if I stretch it a bit, Kankuro and Hinata. While at this time Kankuro and Hinata are actually stronger than the suppressed Naruto, I can still see him winning against them, so it's more of a 50-50 depending on circumstance. Hinata might give up to allow Naruto to win, or blush herself to defeat, while Naruto has the physical prowess to destroy the crow puppet. Kankuro already underestimates Naruto more than Kiba, so I can actually see this going either way. As for the top dogs like Neji, Shino, and Gaara, Naruto without his Kyuubi chakra is at a massive disadvantage, and even with it, he still can't beat Shino, and I've already discussed why multiple times. Everyone else is easy wins for Naruto, with the only true controversial one being Sasuke and maybe Temari. Now, I know I said Temari is stronger than Kankuro, so that might seem like a contradiction to say he outright beats her, but has a 50-50 chance against Kankuro. But here's the reason why. Naruto has much more stamina and resilience than Temari, so her wind scythe is only going to be the same as Kiba with his Fang over Fang. Naruto will keep getting hit, out-stamina her, keep getting closer, and even knock her out. I can even see him using a clone shield to block most of her attacks versus Kankuro using the broken puppet pieces to catch Naruto off guard. As far as Sasuke, Naruto at this time was significantly stronger than him, even suppressed. The fact Orochimaru and Kabuto saw him as a threat to their plan, not them, before someone takes that out of the context, showing that even with Sasuke's awakening, they still thought that the suppressed Naruto was more of a threat. Even Sasuke himself saw him as a major threat after seeing him perform in the forest. Very safe to say this would be an easy dub for Naruto even if Sasuke uses the curse mark. The fact Naruto could handle curse mark Sasuke in the valley while only playing defense says a lot about how powerful base Naruto is compared to base Sasuke. And that's Sasuke with a more significant boost to his power than Naruto, let alone both of them suppressed. Now, for an interesting one, considering how badly I trashed him, we have one of the mid-tier fighters with Kiba. The only people he truly loses to are Naruto, suppressed, and most definitely at full power, Gaara, Shino, Neji, Hinata, Kankuro, and Dosu. Now again, I know Temari is on his win con list, so let me explain why Kankuro can beat him better than she can. While it's true Temari is a higher tier than Kiba, he is a hard counter to her wind-based attacks. Kankuro saved a stronger Kiba from the sound ninja and no-diffed a state 2 curse mark Sakon Ukon, whereas a stronger Kiba could barely even put a dent in them even while they were in base. That, coupled with the fact that Kiba has no real counter for the Puppet Master Jutsu, is the reason I believe he gets absolutely washed. Kiba is the absolute weakest in his team, so I see both of his teammates just beating him outright. While I believe he can beat most of the Sound Squad from Kabuto's team and Dosu's, I don't believe he actually has a hard counter for Dosu. The way he controls the sound waves would actually clap Akamaru immediately and stop Kiba fully, since it gave him an advantage over the stronger Rock Lee. Don't really believe I need to explain anyone else, but if so, leave it in the comments. Moving on to Hinata, the only people I see beating her are Naruto, Gaara, Neji, Shino, Kankuro, and Temari. Unlike Neji, I don't see a counter for Hinata when it comes to Temari. Shino is the strongest of her team, even over Kurenai, and I stand by that notion, plus the fact that she has no counter for him. Don't really need to explain Neji and Naruto since I already explained Naruto and we saw her lose to Neji. The Sand Trio shouldn't even need an explanation, but besides Temari, she's not touching Gaara and only has one counter for Kankuro. But it's not to the degree that Neji does. So I don't see her taking the win. I can see her revealing all of his tricks, but not actually being able to stop them. Everyone that she beats should be self-explanatory, but if you really want to deep dive into why she beats someone in specific, tell me below in the comments who you believe I should elaborate it on. For the same reasons as Hinata, but to a much more significant degree, Neji has a high chance of beating everyone on the list, save a few he would struggle against. The only people I see as threats to Neji at this time are Shino, Gaara, and Lee. While Neji was shocked at Lee's performance, Lee claimed that the fourth gate was his contingency for Neji, meaning that he believes it's strong enough to get through his rotation, let alone the gate of closing. The pure shock on Neji's face when watching Lee says everything you need to know about how that would go. Now, for his more controversial losses, Shino outright beats Neji as Neji has no way to counter his bugs. Shino is very familiar with the Gentle Fist art from Hinata, and yes, Neji is clearly significantly superior, but he still has no contingency against the chakra absorption rate of Shino. Even his rotation would get consumed immediately, and he hadn't fully mastered it by this time, as seen during the training arc before the finals. Now, for his most controversial loss, I believe he loses to Gaara, but not for the reasons you may think. I fully believe that Neji washes base Gaara. His jutsu alone is a hard counter for everything Gaara has. His mother's chakra is within the sand, so I fully believe he can neutralize it and even shut down Gaara's sand armor instantly, rendering him a win. But the main issue comes with Shikaku. Same as Naruto, Gaara will use Shikaku at this time to bypass the shutdown, and he was completely unstable at this time, so I could see him going into his possessions to beat Neji. Now, Neji is slightly weaker than Kyuubi Cloak Naruto, who is slightly stronger than 2K Barrage Naruto, who clapped all of Gaara's possessions. Even base Naruto outperforms Sasuke against possession Gaara just using basic ninja tools. So with an arsenal like Neji's, it would actually take full possession Gaara to beat this kid. While I believe Neji is still technically more powerful than the Giant Awakening Gaara, unpossessed by Shikaku, the sheer size difference is an L for him. Depending on how far the proctors let this go, could spell a disqualification for Gaara or hospitalization for Neji. There's really no in between. Do I really need to explain how he beats everyone else? Do I? Come on, guys. Now, as we already just discussed, the only people with a chance against Gaara at this time are Neji and Shino. Just explained how both of them can potentially beat him, with Neji getting up to all of the small possessions, while I believe Shino has a contingency for the Giant Awakening unpossessed by Shikaku. Everyone else, we already saw Lee lose, and do I need to explain the rest of them at this time? That's a waste of time, as Gaara would put it. Moving on to a more exciting character and mostly everyone's favorite in this arc, we go to the Herald of Youth. The cut that makes bulls jealous. The second bushiest brows in existence. And the greatest guy sensei simp, our boy, Rock Lee! He stomps everyone but Gaara and Shino. End of story. No, seriously, it's really that easy. No, like, I'm not even joking. Even Neji gets washed, as I've explained. There's really no one but Gaara that can compete with Lee, while Shino and Neji have slight contingencies against him, with Shino being the only one I'm confident out of the two that can actually pull a win against gated Lee. Do I really need to re-explain? Now for the easiest ones to explain, Dosu and Choji don't really have too many people they can beat. Dosu can beat Sakura, Ino, Keen, Zaku, and Choji, but he loses to everyone else. Listen to everyone else's explanations to understand. Choji can only beat Sakura, Ino, and Zaku at this time, and that's still a stretch because I believe he would forfeit against Sakura and Ino while pulverizing Zaku. If you really need me to elaborate on these two, all I have to say is rewatch this arc and tell me who else these two could possibly beat. To wrap this up, this selection for the preliminary has a lot of weak characters, with the only truly strong ones being Gaara, Neji, Lee, and Shino. Naruto and Sasuke would be on that list too if they weren't nerfed, but since they were at this time, they're on the weak list. The only mid-tier fighters on this list were Kankuro, Tamari, and Hinata. If Choji had access to his pills, he'd actually be in the high tier category, but again, these are the matchups considering how they entered the preliminary rounds. I'll do more examination for the next arcs, but as of this one, this was my conclusion. Discuss down below, calmly please, which ones you agree or disagree with. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and remember to stay lazy.